Yo, welcome guys. Now this is very off the wall and different from most of the videos that I do. But when I saw the other day that they had community challenges, like a light bulb went off in my head and I had a perfect idea for something that I really flat out had a passion for. 90s era basketball. I think it paved the way for so many players and the way the game is played today. And I think a challenge with the most predominant 90s players, in my opinion, would be extremely cool to play. Obviously I don't have all of them, so let's edit them in real quick and give some reasoning behind each of them. Let's start with GP.
Trash talker.
GP. I played with GP, I played against GP. He just didn't care. And the crazy thing about GP on the court, he was like that off the court. Like if he saw you in the mall, maybe that time I crossed you up, big fella, and I gave you that thing, you went up there, and you almost put your arm out of socket. You can't call me, boy, I'm a Hall of Fame. I'm first ballot, boy, I'm first ballot.
No, truthfully, I think Gary Payton, his attitude and his grit and his grime really embodied what 90s era basketball was about. It was about attitude and it was about complete swag, really. I hate using that word. But Gary Payton's attitude, in my opinion, if there was anyone's attitude to sum up what 90s basketball was about, it was him. Now, I don't think anyone should even, at any point in their entire life, even think about mentioning 90s basketball without mentioning Michael Jordan. I don't think I even need to mention what him did bring to the table.
The inbounds pass comes into Jordan. Here's Michael at the foul line. A shot on Elo. Good! The Bulls win! They win!
Michael was greatness personified, not just 90s basketball personified, and that should sum up why he should belong on any team. No, next has to be the boy Wally Mull. Now, other than the fact that I think he's the coolest white guy I think I've ever seen in my entire life, and that he's from New York, he's one of those people that really summed up that 90s cool that I was really talking about. Run TMC, best shooter in the league, first ballot Hall of Famer. I couldn't not have Chris Mullin on this team. When I think 90s basketball, I think Chris Mullin. Now, I'm not going to lie, I was kind of torn at the starting 4 position, but I did end up going with Karl Malone, mainly for the reason because I did say the 90s did pave the way for today's players. People like Barkley, Karl Malone, and the backup 4 on this team, them did pave the way for those athletic big men that you will see today in today's game. The Blake Griffins, the DeAndre Jordans. A couple years ago, the Amari Stoudemire's. Those big men that you can say that are so versatile and athletic, run the floor, pick and roll, can bring the ball up. Like Karl Malone and Barkley were some of the first big men to bring the ball up and force them coach to just accept it. So for that, and other than the fact that he's the second leading all-time scorer ever in the NBA, he has to get the starting 4 position on this 90s team. Next up, I think it would have been a personal offense if Hakeem Olajuwon wasn't the starting center. Because really, I think other than the 60s and the 70s with the Unsells and the Russells and the Wilts and the Artis Gilmores, like the ABAs and NBAs big men, like the 90s was the golden age of big men. And Hakeem Olajuwon, I chose him as the starting 5 because
It was a point Hakeem would drive home to David Robinson.
Has David Robinson just bamboozled.
No, not that. Alright, yeah, that. But, alright, let me tell you, anybody who can break ankles with post moves, oh my god. Alright, not even that. On a serious note, Hakeem Olajuwon really did pave the way for international players. Mainly players that are coming out of the Congo, and a lot have in recent years. The Serge Ibakas, the Bismack Biyambos, the DJ Mbengas. 2 out of 3 of those people you probably never even heard of, but it's people like that he paved the way for, and for future players to come, because he actually does go over there and oversee basketball players in that country now, where the sport is actually getting very, very popular. So more than anything, to me, he embodied the cultural diversity of the 90s, which I think is extremely cool. Now let's run through the bench. Obviously I don't have all these players again, but with a little quick editing I'll throw a couple of them in there. I think everybody has an idea and can agree that Penny Hardaway was an excellent player to define the 90s. That versatility paved the way for people nowadays like Michael Carter-Williams. Being as big as he was with the athleticism that he had and the skill set that he possessed, completely undefinable, and then top that off with that Captain Cool 90s charisma that he had, could not be on the team. Next, I throw in Clyde Drexler. He was more of a late 80s, early 90s heyday kind of guy, but I threw him in because he was a high-octane, fast-paced offense, athletically gifted player, because in the 80s they were like quick athletic. The jumping athletic you used to see probably Bill Russell, and there was only like 1 or 2 people that could jump back then. The 90s is when real athleticism kicked in, and Clyde showed that to me. Now, continuing the trend of athleticism and grit and sprinkling some beautiful defensive capabilities, which the 90s also shined in as well. Defensive players, there was abundances and copious amounts of them. I mean, just watch.
Myers cross court, Scotty! Oh, and he went right over the top of him.
Well, I guess to most people, it's probably one of the greatest dunks that they've seen me have, or maybe one of the greatest dunks in the history of the game.
It does suck that one of the greatest dunks in NBA history was at the expense of Patrick, but what Pippen brought to the table I think was very revolutionary, sort of like Penny combined with Peyton, like his skill set that he had for his position. Other than Paul Pressey, probably one of the original point forwards that made it okay for the people like LeBron and Melo and Durant to handle the ball more often nowadays. And now in comes the Rain Man. It's hard to find a reason to not put him on a 90s team. Watch this, run the floor like a friggin' gazelle!
He punched that ticket and went on his way. Ooh, he took all 5 purple shirts.
Rebound, Cage, deflected away, loose to the floor, McMillan scrapes it up, goes back, up he comes, Gatling swats it away, Kemp powers in with a jam. Gatling got a piece of it, Gatling comes up and says, wow.
Man, I'm telling you, he crushed that.
Pause. Do you know how hard you have to dunk on somebody to make him dap you up after the dunk? Athleticism, excitement, and charisma. Shawn Kemp was the 90s big man. Now if you add about 3 inches and 100 pounds to Shawn Kemp, you get Shaquille O'Neal. And I think I don't even need to explain why he should be on the team. He was just too big, too strong, too good, too dominant, as he would say for you.
Never seen that. Ruling for O'Neal. That's a man's jam.
There isn't many people to have been in the NBA that have broken a backboard 3 times, so the 90s center position was stacked and it was hard to choose from it, but I just went with who I think just personified it the most, and I think Shaq did for me more than other centers. Next up I go with Glenn Rice, probably one of the most underrated 90s 2 guards, period. I went with somebody like this because the 90s 2 guards they made 3-point shooting a thing. It got more popular than it ever was in the 90s. There were 3-point records that didn't get broken up until a couple of weeks ago by Kyle Korver. 3-point records that were made by Glenn Rice. And I really think that the 90s 2 guards, that was the golden age of 2 guards. And Glenn Rice is one of the most underrated ones that doesn't get as much shine as he should have. So he's the underdog of this team. Now in comes Tim Hardaway. That UTEP 2-step was something so serious.
The killer crossover. Oh, brother. Tim Hardaway has every chamber filled tonight.
When I think of 90s point guards, I think of Penny, Tim, and Peyton. And Tim showed it, no matter how tall you are, you can still be a great player in the NBA. And he had that UTEP 2-step, oh my god, charisma, the inventor of the killer crossover. And finally we round off the team with Patrick Ewing. If you think of the Knicks in the 90s, you automatically think of Patrick Ewing. He was the heart and soul of that team for an era. And he also follows the suit of Hakeem, who, you know, an international player. I'm Jamaican myself, and my dad loves to tell me stories about Patrick Ewing. And he always said that he was a 30-year-old with 60-year-old knees. And even though he seemed dunking on people in those videos, he wasn't really hit by injuries that much when you look at his numbers. But really and truly, injuries did cut his career short when Allen Houston and Latrell Sprewell showed up, and they probably could have contended better because really, he didn't have good people around him, and I think because he never won a championship, he didn't get the credit he deserved as one of the best big men in history, in my opinion. So there's the team in its entirety, the 90s Baby Challenge, and following suit to the 90s, I'd go with 9-minute quarters, a 9,000 MT reward, and it has to be on Hall of Fame. Starters out restrict to gold, bench out restrict to silver. It's more than fair, it's doable, there's a challenge to it at the same time. And the reward is fair, 10,000 MT if you count what you'd get for playing the game. So I genuinely want to know, what do you think of the lineup? What do you think of the concept? And would you play this? Because when I look at a challenge that comes out, first I look at the restrictions and the reward, and if it's interesting enough for me to play. I'd do it. Would you?